Hi, everybody. I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor. Welcome back to the S.M.A.R.T Performance Podcast, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive problem solving, R for rhythmic operation, T for a thriving community, and P for performance. Today, I welcome Jon to the show. We're going to be talking about building that thriving community. We're really taking a much deeper dive and develop some understanding, but most importantly, we'll give you some action items, some things that you can take away that you can start working on today. And that's all around the human aspects of building relationships and partnerships in the workplace. And Jon, thank you very much for being here today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. No, thank you so much for having me, Walter. I started my career many years ago in the world of retail, and I grew up in Macy's and Gap and some of the some of those leading retailers. I made a transition to financial services retail. I spent some time with Bank of America and Travelex, the world's leader in retail foreign currency. And all of that led me to a CEO role with Edison Properties, which is a real estate company based in Newark, New Jersey, with real estate holdings in New York and New Jersey and Baltimore. Along the way, I've written a few books on management and leadership. I'm a adjunct professor at Seton Hall University on retail marketing, and I've helped Capella University write a retail management program. So I've been very fortunate in my career, and I love to help pass along some of the stuff I've learned.
It sounds like a really boring, no, action packed. I just started teaching as an adjunct at Rutgers University, and there's nothing gives me more energy than working with young minds and people you can still help shape. Not only shaping them, but also sharing our deep personal experiences, our successes, but also our failures, and that's very very powerful. And that is actually what we want to talk a little bit about, the human connection. So when you say that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think that, I've spent my entire career managing people and leading people, and I've read, just hundreds of books on management and leadership, and there's always some some trick or some technology tool to help people be better managers or better leaders. And what I've found and what I believe to the core of my being is that being a good leader and being an effective leader is all about just being a good person and finding a way to connect with other humans. When you have a strong foundational relationship with the people in an organization, it helps you collaborate and helps you get things done in a way that all of the management books out there, except for mine, of course, it just can't teach.
So interesting. So I too, when I talk to my mentees about things, is that building a thriving community is exceptionally important, especially people as you go up the career ladder to that director level job. Anything after that, you're really going to be getting out of pre-established relationships and networking that you have. So let's say in your role as an executive, in the role in the organization itself, do you see the difference between having a relationship with somebody versus having a partnership with somebody?
That's a great question. Um, I think, and I guess it depends a little bit on how you define relationship. I mean, relationship is you have a relationship with people, anybody you interact with, you have some relationship, but I think your choice of words in partnership is really important because I used the word collaborate a couple of minutes ago, and I think partnership implies some level of collaboration. And a relationship can be a little bit one-sided, and a partnership to me is something that is two-way, and it involves talking and listening, and it involves teaching and learning, and it involves truly giving and taking from the relationship. So a partnership to me is something where both parties benefit, and when both parties benefit, the results that come out of it are that much greater.
Yeah, I always say that a relationship is going out on the river with with two kayaks. You do your thing, I do my thing, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. While a partnership is being on the same canoe or kayak and rowing in the same direction, the same speed, with the same sense of purpose, where one plus one really becomes three, right? It's synergistic. Now, if building a partnership is only as simple as I am just stating, which it never is, So thinking about that, I'm let's say a middle manager in a company, and I really have aspirations to continue to, uh, build that career ladder into whatever it is I want to be. Let's say I want to go to the C-suite. What would you advise somebody in that position today? What should they do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis to really think about this human aspect and building these relationships into partnerships?
Yeah, I think that people sometimes try too hard to be in a partnership, or try too hard to be in some sort of leadership role or some sort of collaborative role, when in fact a lot of it just boils down to being a respectable person. And there's some, you can list a few elements of that, right? I mean, certainly just being polite and kind and compassionate towards others is a good start. Being a really good active listener is a great next step. And too many people listen with the intent of waiting for their time to talk, and instead of using their listening time to really absorb what the other person is saying. And then I think that there's this idea that you have to somehow earn respect by behaving in a certain way, when in fact respect is about a genuine desire to help other people, and a genuine desire to just see good in other people. And if you start with the belief that everybody wants to succeed, and there's win-wins out there all over the place, then you're much more likely to find those win-wins, and not really have to work too hard to dig them out.
Yeah, interesting. I use that in the philosophy is that's leading with cause, right? That's as one together. But if I'm leading for my promotion, it's inward, not outward, right? And often you don't get where you want because you forget to build those meaningful partnership relationships. So you said something very, very pivotal: listening, hearing. Give me your insight of as somebody who's been there, done that, and as somebody who's coaches. What does listening really mean, and what does hearing really mean, and how can people self-discover if they are good listeners or not?
Right. Um, First of all, I think it's really important that listening to the words is only part of the mission. So much of what people communicate is communicated in the tone and body language. If you can hear the words, but if you're not really understanding the message, you can get yourself trapped into believing something that doesn't really exist. I certainly encourage people to try and listen with their whole their whole body and their whole mind, not just to the words, but to what the underlying message might be, or what the underlying emotions might be. And then I always think it's a great idea to check for understanding. And you can do that a couple of ways. Sometimes it's as simple as asking, just repeating it and saying, "Hey, I think I heard you say this. Did I get that right?" But also, I think a lot of times people make the mistake of responding to a communication, and thinking that their response is golden, and just planning to move on, and they fail to pick up on the little facial expressions that might indicate that they didn't get it quite right. So I try, and I wish I was always successful, and I'm not, just like any other human. But I try to make sure I'm watching for the signals that what I'm saying might not be hitting the mark. And when I catch those signals, I stop and I say, "Ooh, looks like I hit a wrong note there. What did I say, or what didn't I understand? Let's revisit that."
And if you think about that over the span of our careers, we did this mostly one-to-one in person in the same room where I can see the whole person. Right? I think today, because so much is now done like we are doing via Zoom or Riverside or in a Teams call, that we often can lose that piece of the puzzle of what does the full body look like in part of listening. What advice would you give somebody today that is in a hybrid or a remote location on and still in need of building these meaningful partnerships with people? How to get connected to people?
Now, that's a really great question. I think that, I guess my advice is similar to to the point I just made, it's a little bit more challenging to see the whole body, as you rightly say. But regardless of whether it's a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or anything else, you can see facial expressions, and you can tell when you've got, somebody's attention, or you don't have somebody's attention. And it's much easier when you're communicating through technology rather than face to face to just kind of steamroll ahead with your message. And I think it's really important for all of us to remember that sometimes we need to slow down, and we need to maybe shorten our communication a bit and stop talking, and let the other person have the floor for a few minutes. Maybe there's less inclination for people to interrupt when it's in the video environment. So that's one recommendation I would give.
Yeah, so good for, and I think that is something that we can easily do and make it actionable. I try to do a little icebreaker. So listen, tell me something more personal about yourself. It's like,
Mm.
how can we learn to relate to each other rather than me comparing this? And I think that was the biggest advice I had as a young leader, very enthusiastic with a head full of steam. I can work hard, I'm smarter, I'm this, I'm that, right? All these I things that are in there. And then you go out and lead like that, and all you do is fall flat in your face and say, how come nobody's following me? End of
Right.
the day, if you want to be a good leader, people need to follow you, right? They need to feel
Sure.
inspired and motivated by you.
Sure.
So, if you look at your younger self, any stories to share of where things didn't go quite right, and what did you learn from that in the process?
Oh, how many hours do you have?
Well,
Uh,
listen, give me the best story.
um, yeah, I had been running stores and a district for Gap Inc. For years, and I got promoted to a role in headquarters, where I was in charge of store operations for the entire country. And in that role, I did not have direct responsibility or direct authority over the team like I had when I was running stores and districts. And nonetheless, I thought I knew everything, and I thought I had all the answers. And I traveled all around the country, and I couldn't understand why people weren't listening to me. I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't kind of jumping on board with all of my brilliant ideas. And eventually, my boss sent me to a seminar, a third party seminar, and the seminar was incredibly boring for about 4 or 5 hours, until I heard the speaker say, "The best leaders are the people who unlock the ideas in other people's heads, not the ones who have all the ideas themselves." And that was, that 8 hour seminar, that one little sentence was what made all the difference for me. And I took that back, and I began trying to apply that concept in my interactions with all the regional managers and district managers across the country. And I really took it to heart that maybe there were a lot of other smart people out there. And if I could just have collaborative conversations, and I could see myself as maybe opening some doors, rather than throwing out all the ideas. And as you might imagine, things started to turn around for me. So it was a big turning point in my career.
Amazing, right? How those little pivots happen in life. It is, yeah, similar for me along the way. Is that one person I was willing to make that investment in time of telling me the truth, right?
Mm,
Is it so many people around us that are willing to tell us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear? And I
yep.
always say to the leaders of today is that go out and seek honest feedback, be open, be vulnerable, and that's one thing I'm actually adopted this year in the broadcast class. That at the end of the session, I'm going to make them write an evaluation. And the first evaluation of the class was 99% sunshine and maybe one or two comments I need to make it. But that is not good enough. They need to find there's always something that we do, no matter what it is, that something can improve in your opinion. And I need to get people to feel comfortable to do that,
Love that.
because that's where real breakthrough comes through. Giving feedback is part of being a really good partner to somebody. And people are so hesitant. I might, what are they going to think about? This is going to hurt me in my next promotion. It's like, at the end of the day, it likely is not. It will help you. But what did Mark Twain say, right? 92% of the things we worry about never happen.
Never happened. That's right.
So, but I want to go back to what you said about, the boss does not have to have all of the answers, all of the ideas, and certainly shouldn't be the leading voice. When we worked in New York City, we had a large undertaking of trying to introduce lean. As a Lean Six Sigma black belt myself as a facilitator, I took a little page out of Alcoholics Anonymous. I put it on the door. Who you see here, what you see here, let it stay here. There are no titles. There's only opinions, and we all have one, and we all should hear them. So, in your work that you have done over time, are there any little nuggets of that you can share that people can say, listen, if I just adopt this or this is what I did, that really helped bringing people together, and can allow people to follow the leader or become a better version of themselves.
Um, yeah, I have I have a little equation that I live by, both professionally and personally, for that matter. But the equation is actions plus external influences equals results. And the foundation of it is there, obviously there's lots of things that happen that are outside of our control, all those external influences, and you have to understand what they are, and you have to be able to predict their impact, if you want to understand what actions you have to take in order to get the results that you want to get. But ultimately, the only thing you really can control is your actions. And so I encourage, in the organizations that I've worked with, I encourage teams and team members to have discussion about the external influences and try and understand them, but don't get so wrapped up in them that you swirl on them. Instead, transition from the conversation about external influences to a conversation about, okay, so what actions do we take? And if those actions are obviously the right actions, they're going to get us to the results that we're craving.
Love it. E plus R equals O, very similar, but I talk more about upper brain and lower brain, but it's very similar to that. Is that rock solid stuff? Hey, Jon, where can we find you?
So pretty easy. JonDario.com is my website, and all my links to all my books and my key philosophies and everything are right there.
Okay, that makes it almost too simple to find you, right? As long as people know how to spell, they can make it happen. Leave us with a parting thought, something that is deep that people can take home and make it actionable.
My parting thought is, look, everybody in this world wants to succeed. People like to be liked. People like to be successful, and different people might have different definitions of what that looks like, and they might have different abilities to achieve success, and they might have different levels of motivation and focus and everything else. But if you start with the premise that people generally want to be good and people generally want to be successful, and our role, whether we're leaders or partners or we're working side by side with peers, our role is to help everybody be successful, and including ourselves. And the minute that we begin to think that we've got a monopoly on good intentions, we're treading into dangerous territory.
Yeah, we're off track. So meaningful, intentional, actionable, and make sure you find these deeper partnerships. I think that is well said. Jon, thank you very much for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate your insights, and I'll encourage, of course, all the listeners in the show notes. You can find his web address. Go there, explore more, get in touch with Jon, continue the conversation. And again, do yourself the favor, right? Listening is one thing, but take meaningful action coming out of our conversations. Start today. Go to the App Store, download my new app, this S.M.A.R.T Performance, just simple, the Dutch Mentor. It is a simple thing. You have a 7-day free trial, but just 15 minutes a day, you too can be ... You fill in the blank, but you have to put that work in a very intentional way. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today, and we'll talk soon again. Jon, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.